Well, look, very quickly, there's a lot of familiar faces around the table, which is great to see again, and a few new ones. Mornington, south of Melbourne, very cool area, very different to the rest of Australia, and fortunately some of you have been there and seen that firsthand. In terms of us, I mean, look, I'll just really get straight to the point. What we do is we try and make wine to the best of our ability, and we believe that wine made to the best standards is wine that reflects where it's grown. So we happen to be making Pinot and Chardonnay, but that's really what we're really making is wines from our property. So even with the Mosele now, everything is 100% estate grown. We have 3 properties, all in Mornington. One property is up on the volcanic soils, which is Port Phillip estate. Those wines are bottled separate, always have been. It's a separate entity. We don't really export much of that because it's only about 3,000–4,000 case production, so they all get sold in Australia. We then have the Kooyong property, which is about 100 acres of vineyard, which makes all our wines. And about 3–4 years ago, we bought another property just around the corner from Kooyong, very similar property, which has Pinot and Chardonnay, predominantly Pinot Noir, about 30-odd acres. In fact, it's about 23 acres of Pinot and 7 or so Chardonnay. And we bought that to supplement the Mosele. So we were at a point where we were forced to buy fruit for a year or two because we just couldn't supply enough, and we just weren't interested in that. So we said, no, if we're going to be serious, it's got to be totally estate. So we're fortunate that I have an owner who was happy to go out and spend a couple $1 million on another property. And he hasn't asked for the money back yet, so hopefully we'll be happy. So really, what are we trying to do? We're trying to make wine that reflects the site. What does that mean? It means that you've got to crop low, it means you've got to work the vineyard hard, you can't mechanise, you can't do all the things that standardise wine. And in the winery, it's all hand-picked fruit, of course. Natural fermentation, because why do you want to use a yeast that gives you another impression? You're better off to use a yeast that I think is reflective of the site, that comes from the site. And certainly the latest research indicates that wild ferments are conducted by yeasts on the grapes rather than in the winery, although of course, depending on the hygiene of the winery, you can get a culture living in the winery. And then off to barrel, the whites these days, which is slightly different to the way the wine we're about to drink is made, but whole bunch pressed, direct to barrel sequentially, which means that the first juice goes to the first barrel and the last pressing juice goes to the last barrel. There's no racking of juice, there is no malo, there is no acid addition, and that's why there's no malo, because I don't want to add acid. So why take the acid away only to have to add it? It makes no sense at all. Very much so, malo for us is a deacidification tool with whites. And left sous-lit, no batonnage, that's it. No fining. Obviously has to be filtered because of the malo decision, but other than that, that's it. So it gets bottled after about 12 months. The latest wines have actually been coming out of the barrel after about 9 or 10 months, and then staying in a stainless steel tank for six or so months. And that really brings the wine back together. It's a technique that Domaine de Flav and a lot of those guys, Sauzet, I think, use that as well. It's not uncommon. And I think what it does is it enables you to get the wood, but then to really rein the wine in and hopefully build a bit more of the sort of sulphide matchstick characters in the wine, which I find quite attractive in a lot of the Burgundies I like. So that's really what we're trying to do. In terms of production, 2/3 Pinot, 1/3 Chardonnay, or 1/3 whites. The majority is Chardonnay, and about 5% of that third is Pinot Gris. That's really the story in a nutshell. Please ask any questions you like. I'll try and answer them.
It would be really interesting to get a take on the different, given that you've got the single vineyard, it would be interesting to get
I've actually
a take on the terroir.
ignored the most important aspect. Okay, so there are 5 vineyards on our property. There are 2 Chardonnay, 3 Pinot vineyards. The soil is sandstone with duplex clay over the top. The difference in the soil between the vineyards is the amount of ironstone. And ironstone is sandstone pebbles about the size of your fingernail, more or less, in encrusted in iron oxide, so they're sort of that rusty red colour on the outside, hence the colour of the ferrous label. But if you were to break it in the middle, it's a sandy colour, so it's like an egg almost. You've got that sort of sandy colour in the middle. The ferrous and Farrago vineyards are on the same belt of soil, which has the highest level of ironstone. I think those wines are the most mineral when you taste them, and you've all tasted that, hopefully you agree. The two vineyards that then have moderate levels of ironstone is the Haven and the Fault Line, and then you have Mears, which has very little, if any, ironstone. That's basically the story. I believe the differences that you taste in the wine is due to the ironstone. Basically, you have more ironstone. Not only do you have the minerality, but you have less soil because stone replaces some of the volume in the soil. Therefore, you have less available water. You have a soil which tends to stress the vines out more. So those vineyards tend to have smaller berries, more concentration. The reds develop more tannins. In fact, the whites also develop more tannin. And the wines, I think, tend to be a little more austere, but a lot more cut, a lot more linearity to the wines. And that's, I think, the distinguishing feature of those wines. So hopefully you'll see that in those two whites, where the Farrago should show a little more linearity, perhaps a little more backwardness as well at the moment, and the Fault Line a little fuller, a little more generous, perhaps a little more aromatic as well. So I think more fruit, the Haven and Fault Line vineyards I think tend to show a bit more plush fruit. The Farrago and the Ferrous vineyards are a bit more angular, a little less about fruit, a little more about structure. That's what they do in a typical year. So it'd be interesting to see these 205 side by side now, which I haven't done yet, to see what they're actually showing.